Christos, my dear friend, what an honor and a privilege to offer you greater use of the birth order for children. Thank you for considering such a thing as service to our little ones in that way. Yes, would it make a difference if parents apply the birth order dynamics with awareness and tenderness, compassion, and love when children are quite small? I think it would make such a difference we could not measure the outcome. Yes. So I will do my best to support your process, however you want to do it. I'm just going to give you some of my own experience, and I would say that it's not always right. It's just my experience. I've done many different things that led up to the birth order and the family tree dynamics, and I'm still learning things today about how to be able to go through this even now at my tender age, or anyone, how to go through the family tree, and even the current work that I'm doing that involves cycles and seasons. It does exactly that. It takes you through the entire family tree, one grandmother at a time, one grandfather at a time, because if we really want to help our children, it's what we do responsibly as adults before we conceive children. And so one of the responsible things to do would be to examine one's own family tree, and even utilizing the times of the day, the seasons of the year, to address, to identify your own family tree. This is before you have children. So this is why I would suggest, and sometimes I used to ask people to focus on their family tree, but sometimes it was easier by saying, okay, your mother's mother's mother, your great-grandmother, which turns out to be in the RAYID speak grandmother number 4. And I would say, on a scale from 1 to 100, how much do you actually sincerely feel that you know and love her today? 1 to 100. I've heard many answers, by the way, and I only know as much as I've done it. Maybe I might be 2.3 or 2.4 out of a scale of 100, because the amount of feeling, wisdom, knowledge, experience, love in that one position far exceeds anything I could explain to you today. But doing what we just did, I took your attention to your mother, your grandmother, your great-grandmother, and we spent just a few seconds of appreciation, understanding, caring, mystery for the great-grandmother number 4, that corresponds to the feeling yin side of the heart. 4 boy, 4 girl, the heart. So if I spend time with my great-grandmother number 4, I'm actually putting my attention, my appreciation, my kindness, my respect, even my desire to want to understand what the universal attribute is in the birth order that relates to me. Because a lot of people say, well, look, I only have 2 kids. Why should I care about the other ones? Because all 12 of these birth order positions are inside me. Their glands, their organs, their body systems, like the number 4 grandmother, it's one single point on a spectrum of points. But even though these are, if you want to go that route, different chakra positions, different glands and organs and so on, different acupuncture points or meridians, there are also many, many different combinations of these. Number 1 connected with number 5, number 1 connected with number 5 and number 2. So all of these are interwoven dynamics of life force. So if I say on a scale of 100, how well do you know and love father's father's father? Some people say, well, I never met him. I don't care. Why should I bother? Well, you know that the science of genetics, especially epigenetics, will tell us that not only does that DNA exist, but there are crystallized emotional memories, methylated proteins of emotional stress this grandmother, that grandfather brought into us. So this is the family tree dynamics. It is a composite of emotional memory of the life they went through. Now we just did 2. So on a scale of 1 to 100, how much do you know each of them? Ideally, parents that are conceiving children would do whatever they can to do this for them first. But one of the most significant things that I would say to any parents before they conceive a child is to tell me why they want a child. I've heard lots of answers, by the way, and very few of them I actually like. I can accept it that someone says, I want a child. I want to feel them. I want them around the house. I want their love. I want to feel what it feels like to be a father or a mother. I want to watch them grow up. I want them to take care of me when I'm older. No, not the lessons or feelings that I would prefer. Because the reality is the children that we would bring into the world, they don't really belong to us. I'm sure you know that. They belong to a divine mother and father, and we have a temporary transition of time where we get to be providers and caregivers for souls of higher parents who are occupying a body in a birth order position that we can help, but they belong to someone else. So I would say no child belongs to any one pair of parents. If we want to, we could say they belong to all of us, that my children belong to you and your children belong to me, because on a higher level, I think that's how we will treat all children. All children are brothers and sisters of all of us. But maybe that's too idealistic. I don't really know. So the first thing I would ask is, what is your true motive for wanting to have a child? Now, if there's conflict between the parents about, I want a child, oh, you don't. Oh, my mother says we need to have a child now, or no, or if there's this kind of energy between, I want a child, you don't, I want it because I'm lonely, maybe it will save our marriage. This is not the ideal environment in which to conceive a child of any birth order. But one of the more dangerous ones that I'll just bring to your attention because it's that important is whenever there is conflict between two families over whose God the children will follow. One group might be Catholic, the other group might be Jewish. I'm just making those two up, by the way. And they go, wait, our children are going to be Jewish. No, our children are going to be Catholic. or no, we don't believe in any God at all. If there is conflict between the man and the woman about the spiritual orientation of children, there will be a problem. It's as simple as that. If the father and the mother are fighting, it's a problem. Even if the families are not controlling the situation, if the father and the mother are in conflict, there's going to be a problem. Now, I've said this to people before, and I've seen the results. It doesn't matter what exactly you agree, but that you agree. So, for example, if they had two different religions, and literally I've been through this, the mother was from a religious fanatic family, the father from a atheist family. They get together. Are we going to be atheists or are we going to be religious fanatics? Extremely damaging, very difficult. Please agree on something. So even if you agree that we want to form our own religion, I've said this literally, the religion of peanut butter. If you and your spouse agree, that's how you want to practice your own spiritual orientation. Peanut butter, flowers, stars, you have the right to form your own religion if you want. Agree. You're better off if you're both atheists, agree that you're atheist, if that's where you are, but be in agreement. But when a man and a woman have two different radical differences in culture or radical differences in religion, and they can't resolve those in their relationship, please don't have any children. Not until you resolve that. Because the long-term effect does that inside the brain of the child, the grandchild, great-grandchildren, and inside them, a gland, an organ does this. Please don't do that. So now that we cleared that part of it, and the family's in agreement that they're going to be a family devoted to, strawberry ice cream, that's fine with me. Or if that's strawberry ice cream from the divine feminine, that's even a little better. Whatever that agreement is, make that agreement to be in a relationship that is a truly spiritual relationship for children who come from a divine father and mother, and we are temporary caregivers of their right to be individuals because they're souls. They're not just our children. They're temporarily our children. But by the time they're older, they're equal. They're not below. They're not in our control. We have no right to demand, expect them to take care of us, provide for us, milk the cows. Whatever it is, we don't have a right to control them. So this is where I would start when it comes to the birth order. So then in the birth order of the children, it really helps for the mother and the father to be ideally aware of their own birth order first. So if you're a father and you're a number one son, then at least study the progression of 1, 3, 5. Boy number 1, boy number 3, boy number 5, because there's going to be a set of 3. If you're a mother and you're a number 1 girl, then you have to do 1, 3, 5 of your own side. Every single one of the birth order positions is going to have a set of 3 that will become part of its natural endowment. So, for example, if you have a number 2 boy, he's going to be 2 and 4 and 6. So he has to learn 2, 4, and 6 as his naturally guidable ability, but then he's going to have to learn things that are not natural to his nature, such as girl, peace, Girl 4, open your heart. Girl 6, light. So every one of the birth order positions is going to have a natural guidance mechanism that's going to be greatly enhanced by the mother and the father just appreciating their own. So if the mother is appreciating her 12 grandparents and her own mother and father to make that 14, if she's working on all 14 of hers and the father's working on all 14 of his, they're automatically going to be helping these children integrate the same energetic effect within themselves. So later on, you can teach all 12 birth order positions to any child. So basic appreciation. Over this period of time, I'd have to say my appreciation for how much influence a mother has with her children, from my own appraisal, exceeds that of the father. Now, for a variety of reasons. One, the metabolic function of the epigenetic mitochondrial DNA is only delivered by the mother, which means all of the cellular metabolism is ruled by the epigenetic methylation of the ancestry inside the mother. Wow, that's a lot, not from the father. So by the time you add together the functions of gestation, all the way through this time period, I'd have to say, sorry guys, women have about a 90% influence over the ultimate outcome of that child, especially if they do so with some degree of awareness. I'm saying that because of her biochemical effect through the gestation and through the biochemical effect through breastfeeding and so on, that I want to be sure that a mother is given the maximum opportunity to appreciate her role as a caregiver, provider, deliverer of the human body of her child. I've not gone through childbirth. I can hardly imagine it. But I think that what a mother delivers is a significant thing. Now, the interesting thing about the iris, just to throw in some iris in there for a moment, I'm now pretty sure that the jewel flower influences, which seem so completely opposite, both derive their origin from the mother's side of the family, of how well the mother and father were in harmony in mother's mother, and how well that the mother and father's families were in harmony in mother's mother's mother. So each one of these positions on the mother's side of the family, to me, is ruled by the mother and her relationship to that child. Why? Because in the beginning, particularly under the age of 8, the primary influence is being directed from and emanating from the mother's side of the family. Later, the influence is past the age of 8, and for approximately 40 years, up to 48, is primarily all father's side of the family. But the father's side of the family is actually being just an outer manifestation of what the mother's family already delivered. So I encourage mothers to be with their children as much as they humanly can. I know it's not easy in this life in the world to be a mother without much community support or economic support, wanting to have a career or an activity. It's not easy to be a mother, particularly a single mother, in this world without support from a community and her own family. And then I would just urge you, primary personal opinion, under the age of 2, you cannot hug and kiss them too much. What I just said was hug, kiss, hold them as much as you possibly can. For any child under the age of 2. Strap them to you if you're walking around, carry them, hold them, touch them, kiss them, rub them, massage, because that time period between birth and 2 is the primary time period where they're learning how to crawl, for example, and they're interfacing their central nervous system. So anytime they have a sense of touch, feeling of emotional bond, it's going to be intensely more valuable that whatever you give them under the age of 2 is going to create a neurological foundation for all of their lifetime. Hug them, hold them, kiss them as much as you can. And then carry them until they're getting too heavy, until they do like toddlers want to do. They want to start to move. They want to start to run. Let them run as much as you possibly can. Now, I know this is not practical in most homes, but I'm going to tell you something that I consider to be practical, particularly between the ages of 2 and 4, but maybe 2 and even 6, but not as much at 6. By 4, between 4 and 5, you can start to change it. Between 2 and 4, no actual out of bounds that they can reach, meaning cabinet, closet, anything that you can have on a ground level that they can examine, go into, do not block their access to anything down below. Don't put the little locks on the drawers or under the sink. Take all the chemicals and anything dangerous, any appliance and any cord, and move it up. But for a period of time when they're crawling and they're exploring, let their minds become a 3-boy. Let them be inquisitive. Let them find answers. Don't try to tell them anything. Don't try to teach them too much at the age of 2 to 3. Let them explore on a physiological touch basis. And you'll have to watch because, they'll want to put things in their mouth, but they'll learn after a while to spit it out. But don't stop their exploration because that's going to be their long-term curiosity about life as a whole. It's a 3-boy development at a very important phase. Now, somewhere around 3, all the way through to age 7 and even age 8, and then sometimes beyond, there is one instrument that I consider to be the most important: allegorical visual stimulation with words, not with pictures. What I mean by that is stories. Lots and lots of stories. Yes, you can use storybooks to some degree or another, even though I don't completely like them. Children like to point at pictures and those kinds of things, but they could probably use 15 to 30 minutes a day of auditory stimulation with stories, no pictures. You don't want to give them their pad, their phone, whatever it is. You don't want to give them a computer or a television and let them sit and stare at images on the outside. No outside images. I'm sorry. I would not give a child a cell phone, an iPad, or a television. Definitely under the age of 3, none of them. Maybe 0, however you want to do that. Maybe gradually a bit more after 3, a little bit more, but I wouldn't get them to the point of being addicted to devices because it will actually not allow their interior development of their own imaginative mind. But you can compensate for some degree of this by 30 minutes, 20 minutes of auditory stimulation with recorded stories after they sleep at night. When a child's asleep, their mind's going to be hearing and they're going to be processing the images of the stories. Now, you well know that stories are designed typically to develop or to resolve situations or to develop the character quality in a child. So that visual stimulation inside the child's mind will help to develop so many different neural connections about how to keep that child connected to itself. 30 minutes a night. Now, here's my caveat. If you do a story 20, 30 minutes at night, and the child wakes up with a night terror event, or they come running to your room, or they wake up in the morning and they have a diarrhea, or they're nauseous, they feel off, or they feel angry. No, it's not the wrong story. It's the right story. Because you've triggered something by the use of that particular story that causes them to have a neurological desire to want to resolve the feelings behind the images. Take the story away for a day or two, bring it back, maybe in a reading fashion. Then after they go to sleep, turn it down lower than it was, play it for less period of time, like 10 minutes. And then keep increasing the length of time until you have no reaction to the story after 30 minutes. So if you go through this process, by the way, it will typically take at least 3 weeks to go through one triggered reactive story. And then you can add in another one. You can add in 2 stories in one night. I wouldn't go to 3, but you can do 2 recorded ones and then watch the overall feedback. Now, I used to develop stories for individual birth order positions, like the boy who rides a horse and jumps over a volcano, right? Or the dolphin that goes to the sea, meets a whale. And I realize that all children need both. All children need both genders of story. So yes, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, excellent stories in their classical versions, not the Walt Disney versions. Please don't give children the Walt Disney version of any story. I think ultimately it ruins the value of the story. But some of the classical stories of Sleeping Beauty, Cinderella, excellent. Classical story of Three Little Pigs, the whole classical story of each one of the favorite ones that you've ever had, the classical ones, Hansel and Gretel, excellent stories because they put the child into a challenging position, they resolve the difficulty, and they come out better. This is the wise use of stories. That's probably the most important thing that I would offer between age 3 and age 8. Beyond that, you can still do that in the evening when you're going off to bed if the child will permit it. You could do stories up to about age 12, but if they have any resistance past age 12, please respect their privacy. This may not be what you were expecting on how to use birth order for your children, because we're just now starting on what to do for each one of the children. So I won't go into reading to you how to raise your number one son and your number one boy that Edith has already written for you. I'm sure you've acquired them or you can acquire them by now. Let me just give you some very important little parenting skills. If you follow these basic ones, your life and their lives will be better in the long run. For number one son, respect that he comes in 1 degree higher than the father. Sometimes men don't want to hear this. meaning that whatever the father is, his number one son is 1 degree higher, and usually an opposite. So number one son doesn't want to be told by his father what to do or how to do it. This is a very challenging lesson. So you need to start at an early age when you have a number one son, then somewhere around the age of 1.5 to 2. One of my favorite things to suggest is, son, I've got these 2 pairs of socks. They don't have different colors, but I've got red and blue. Which pair of socks do you think I should wear? The black one, Daddy. Oh, thank you. You've now respected his right to begin the process to make decisions for you. Not an easy thing for a man. Be prepared to wear the socks he points out. Later on, you could do 2 shirts, or you could give him the choice, and always be prepared for him to be healthy choices, by the way. Do you want blueberries or banana? Let him choose. If he says orange, then you might say, explain to me why you want the orange. And invite him to talk to you. Always invite number one son to communicate to the father. Now, you know full well that your number one son has a greater access to your wife's heart than you do. Did you get that? Number one son has half of your wife's DNA. So number one son really has an easier access inside the mother than the father does. Now, the interesting thing is the father's love has a certain degree, and it's an opposite. The number one son has an opposite degree and is higher, but the two of them together create something that the mother could only dream for, to love her husband and then be fortified and have that love increased by the humility of her own husband. Wow. To love your husband and your number one son would be a complete blessing for the entire family. Now, if you're a mother, much more difficult series of lessons. Because if you're a mother and you have a number one son, you know the degree to which that child can touch your heart. Now, if you have any personal history or animosity toward your own father, you need to resolve it. No, that doesn't mean you need to resolve it with him. That means you need to resolve it in your own heart. Because that boy, your number one son, is going to trigger all the emotions that you've not resolved from your father's family. Now, if that turns out to be a difficult thing, it starts to turn out to be a difficult thing for number one son and his mother. That's a whole nother topic. Now, mother, your relationship to number one son means, strangely enough, wherever you point, that's what he wants to develop. So if you have a love of stars, he's likely to become an astronomer. If you have a love of cooking, he might become a chef. So whatever you have a tendency to be in your own passion towards, he'll usually have a tendency to find you there and go higher. Now, it's a personal issue, but Hitler had a mother, obviously, but the history shows it was his mother's hatred of the Jews that Hitler acted out. No, I'm not blaming just his mother. I'm saying there's a whole culture of hatred running through the mother's family that comes down to the number one son, and now he's going to act out the unresolved pain of the mother. Now, here's the issue about the birth order. The birth order brings to us all of the unresolved emotional issues of our entire family tree. So every one of the children, boy 1, yes, he brings it in from the mother's family. Boy 2 brings it in from the father's family, and so on, alternating, all 6 boys and all 6 girls alternating until they bring us the unfinished business of the entire family tree. So how do you help a birth order in a child that you know you have in your arms, that you now know that this is the 3rd daughter you have? I would suggest you reinforce the birth order first. Reinforce the natural 3-girl birth order and its orientation to the father's family and its orientation toward healing and health and plant kingdom, all the things associated with that, and that you would help her in the long run, take her visit the birthplace of her great-grandmother number 3. You would encourage that line of a 3-girl. The same thing is true for a 2-girl. You would encourage that line, mother's mother and her mother. You support that line. You never violate their natural attributes. For example, if you have a number 1 girl and a number 2 girl, you know the difference. Number 1 girl is like talky, control, control, control. 2 girl likes to go off and do her own thing. Do not violate that desire to detach by making her have to come back and being with her sister or someone else. Support her natural ability to go 2-girl, 4-girl, 6-girl. There are whole lessons about how to do that. I won't go into them at this point, but how do you support this if you have any number of child? Support first the birth order position. Then look for adding 1 number. What does that mean? So when I said you had a 3-girl, you support the 3-girl. Then add 1 number to the 3-girl, support her learning of how to be a 4-girl. You could do that with 2-girl as well, 2-girl, 4-girl, 6-girl. So if you have a 2-boy, you support him becoming a 3-boy. You support his being a 2-boy on a positive level, but you teach him how to be a 3-boy and a 5-boy. Because unless he's taught how to be the other ones, he won't have the natural inclination to go there. I hope that's simple enough. Add 1 number. So if you have a 5-girl, teach her how to be a 5-girl. Teach her how to be a 6-girl. That will help her. Teach her how to be a 4-girl. You can't really be a 5-girl without being a 4-girl and a 6-girl. But her natural tendency to be globally concerned about animals, world peace, or whatever it is going to be better facilitated by learning how to be a 4-girl. 6-girl. So every birth order has an opposite. 1 boy has 1 girl, there is a lesson. 2 boy has 2 girl, there is a lesson. So you can look at all 12 of the grandparent patterns as being 12 different lessons every child needs to be exposed to in some form or another. Wow. If we could do even a fraction of that, we would have a completely different world in a generation or 2. So I appreciate that you've asked me to, well, you actually only asked me for my blessing, and I'm going in, wait, I'm going to come here and give you a blessing. If you're going to go do this in the world, take all this information and take it with you. You know that you have my blessing to use any part of the birth order book or any other piece of the information any way that you want. And if you end up with doubt about some question about something, just call me up. I'm not that hard to get a hold of. Send me an email, and if I can't do it in writing, And then if you're willing to endure a video like this, ask me a question and I'll answer it in the video. Okay, until we talk again, be well, my friend.